Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I honor the fact that you have allowed me to be in this space to share some of the things that I have learned during my years of family and community engagement. And my hopes is that you will find this a good use of your time and that you will learn something that you will be able to take back and enhance your work with families and doing your engagement and structuring. um, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen there. Um, as you can see, Matthew has already introduced, I am the director with family and community engagement at the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. And I have been there for it's going on about 7 years now as a director. But I have spent over 25 years working with families and children and families. It has been my passion. It remains my passion. And it just does not get old. It does not get old at all. Working in the school district or in the educational system is very interesting. It brings many challenges, but none of which cannot be overcome with a team and with people who believe in what we're doing. So that's where I want to be able to share today some of the things that Cleveland is doing to enhance our work with families and engaging them in their child's education. So let me talk about what it is that I want to accomplish today. What I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you today a little bit of information and some background with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. And the reason why that's important is because there are a lot of family engagement is a broad topic. It's very broad. It's like an overarching umbrella, and it has a lot of different layers to it, And it's not a one size fits all because it's dependent upon where you are as a district organization or program as to what would work best for you. So as I speak of what's happening in Cleveland, it's important for me to tell you exactly our structure, where we came from, and what we are actually doing so that you could see how it best works for Cleveland, and then you could tweak or modify anything that you see that could work best for your district or organization. I'm also going to talk about how we integrate family engagement into our district strategy and our school improvement plans. Now, every school usually has a strategy or a structure in which they decide on school goals, if not yearly, annually, or biannually. Well, Cleveland actually integrates family engagement into those goals. And I'm going to talk about that as well, because that's important. I want to provide you with information about the processes that we use to implement strategies using a tiered system of family engagement. Because we have to know and understand that everyone is not at the same level, but we need to be able to meet not only our families, but our schools and our organizations and our programs where they are, be able to assess them and see where they are in order to move them to the next level. Because this family engagement piece is still, even though it's been research going on for over 60 years about how effective this area is, it's still quite new. There's a lot in-depth information. There's a lot of unearthing of things that needs to happen to be able to lay down some roots and be able to build upon something that's really solid and that could really make a difference with family engagement. So we're going to talk about that tiered system and being able to assess where you are so that you will be able to have some realistic goals from which you can utilize to build your program. I'm also going to share with you how we collect data to inform alignment with improvement plans, school district goals, and to provide an array of supports and strengthen family-school partnerships. The first thing I'd like to talk about here is I want to tell you about our core values. We do have an Office of Family and Community Engagement, and I'll talk a little bit about who is that comprised of, but there are some values that we decided that we would have, that we would take and we would build upon, and that we would keep in mind each time that we decide on any type of structure, strategy, protocol, or process, that it needed to include these values that we have. And what I would like to do is I'm going to ask you guys kind of early in the game to utilize your chat. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to make a statement, and I'm going to ask you whether or not you agree or disagree. That's it. It's just, I'm just taking the temperature. There's no right or wrong answer. Okay. This is just me asking where you stand with believing these values. The first one I have is, all families have hopes and dreams for their children and want the best for them. Do you believe that? And you can just put in the chat, agree. You can put a thumbs up, although I can't tell you, I can't see everybody. But if you would like to put agree, disagree, I'm not sure, that would be great. All families have hopes and dreams for their children and want the best. What do you think about that? Okay, yeah, I know. Half agree, half disagree. Yeah, got it. Absolutely, definitely. Most, yes, yes. Yeah, most families. That sounds about right. Yeah. Awesome, awesome. Now, my next question is, do you believe that all families have the capacity to support their children's learning? Tell me what you think about that. You agree? Disagree? Ooh, yep, come on. Nope, nope, nope. Depends. Most need help somewhat. Yes, good. Yeah. Not really. Yeah. Some have a question mark. Yeah. Language barriers. Capacity can be built. Oh, I like that, Sherry. Like that. They have the potential. Sadly, not all. Okay. Okay. Let's look at the next one. Do you believe that families and school staff should be equal partners in the education of their children? Tell me what you believe about that one. Yes, yes. Yeah, this is absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Yes. Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Very good. School carries the greater weight, but yes. Okay. Okay. Very good. And then this last one here. The primary responsibility for building partnerships between home and school rests mainly with school leaders and staff. What do you believe about that one? Yes. 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 Agreed. Yes. 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 Very good. Very good. Very good. And then I'm just going to mention our last value is our community partners. We definitely believe our community partners and our stakeholders are valuable contributors to the education of our students and preparing them to compete in this 21st century global economy. But what I want to say about those values that we hold, and it's not a right or wrong answer, but it is imperative that we are aware of our beliefs and where we stand with regards to family engagement. And I'll tell you why. When it comes to family engagement, how many of you have heard that this is about building relationships? It's about wonderfully building relationships with our families, with each other, with our schools, with the community. But the core to effective family engagement is building relationships, which is true. which is very true. But how many of you believe that the attitude or perspective with which you approach a relationship has an effect on the quality of the relationship? Yeah, it absolutely, yes, it does. It has an effect, which is why Cleveland had to lay down values first, that we believe that anyone who wants to engage in family engagement should at least hold these values of being possible. Now, I'm not saying that they are all true 100% of the time, because we know there are always outliers. We understand that. But in order for us to effectively and authentically engage with our families, we do need to believe that they want what's best for their children. We need to believe that. We need to not only believe that they want what's best, but we need to also believe that they have the capacity to support their child's learning. And we need to believe that we're equal partners and that together we're responsible for the building the partnerships between home and schools. Now, there is a thing called reciprocity when it comes to relationships, okay? But it is the schools. The primary responsibility is the schools to reach out and create a welcoming environment and say, we want you here. Are we okay so far? Are we okay so far? So I just want you to think about that, because what you believe in your perspective will undoubtedly come through your actions. Undoubtedly. And a small example, just a really small example, specifically for my teachers, is if I don't believe you have the capacity to help your child, then I might not share some best practices or strategies that you could use at home to share with your child, because I don't believe you would do it. Is that fair? I don't believe that's fair at all. Okay? And it may cause this child to miss out on some needed learning because of a belief held. Okay? So I like to pull that part out first, because that's extremely important in understanding as we approach this topic of family engagement, that what are we coming to the table with? What are our belief systems? And how do we believe, how do we assess the effectiveness of our work? And it starts with what we believe. Our department at Cleveland Metropolitan School District, after looking at a lot of different departments across the states, I believe that Cleveland Metropolitan School District is pretty fortunate in the fact that we have a department that consists of an executive director, a director, we have a manager of volunteers and special projects, we have a program manager, we have an office assistant, and we have 6 FACE coordinators. The FACE coordinators are assigned to a network of schools, and each network has about 15 to 17 schools in it. And then we also have been blessed to be able to implement a parent ambassador program where we hire parents to work in the schools specifically to engage other parents, because we believe that sometimes, a lot of times, parents find it a lot easier to speak with other parents about issues and concerns that they may have, or just to ask questions. And then those parent ambassadors who support a dual perspective of understanding what it's like to be on the staff end, and they understand what it's like to be on the parent end, can bridge that gap and support other parents in getting what they need and understanding what they need to understand, and making sure they have good information and support their child's success. So we have a pretty robust department that we're able, and even though that may be a little robust, it's still is there's still a lot of resources and support and time that we could use, but we're doing the best with what we have. Cleveland, we currently have about 62 pre-K-8 schools, 31 high schools, 2 K-8 schools. We got a remote option, 2 remote options, 1 virtual and 1 remote. The difference being virtual is it has asynchronous and synchronous learning, but then there's an option where it's like homeschool tutoring, where they provide the computer and the textbooks, and then a person, if needed, will be able to help with any other subjects. We are an urban district. We're about half and half female, male. We have about 64% of our students are Black, African American. We have about 17% Hispanic, 14 white, and 4.4 other. We have a pretty fairly large special education population, 21%. We have those who are limited English proficiency. Cleveland is considered a Title I district. All schools in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District are qualified for Title I, because we have 90%, we consider 90% are economically disadvantaged. So Title I applies to every last one of our schools. And then we have about a 4% homeless population, and then we have a 12% district mobility rate. So I think that's probably about average for urban schools, but you can see that we're a very large district. We have had some pretty good gains in the last couple of years. We had our graduation rate increase by 30 percentage points. We had a number of CMSD graduates needing college remediation that declined. We have been fortunate enough to be able to be the recipient of what we call Say Yes Cleveland, which is a program that offers all of our graduating seniors who have attended a Cleveland Metropolitan School District from the 9th grade through to the 12th grade and live in the city of Cleveland. They get scholarships to college. They do not have to pay for their college career. And that's pretty phenomenal. And there are many, many schools that participate in that. And they offer these scholarships because we're eliminating barriers to the post-secondary education. And it is also comes with what we call a family support specialist, which helps families eliminate any barriers that they may have to not only attending college, but attending school now, okay? So resources galore and connections to community resources, services and counseling, mental health supports, and whatever's needed to remove the barriers from going to completing school and then going to college. And they also get support in their years of college in the form of mentors to ensure that they don't get stuck with any barriers while they're in college that cause them to drop out early. And that's just a phenomenal program that we have. We have college completion rates for previous CMSD graduates in both 2- and 4-year higher education institutions. They went up. And CMSD also went from being the worst performing district in the state to one of the most rapidly improving school districts. Of course, I know people don't want to talk about it, but I still have to mention it. We talk about recovering from the global pandemic. The effects of it are still with us. While even now we're still seeing an upsurge in what we're calling the COVID/flu. They put them together and it's making some new round of some things. But since then, like most other districts, we had some setbacks, but we made significant growth in this year's Ohio State Report Card, placing it in the top 10% of Ohio districts in growth. We ranked number 1 in the Ohio 8 urban districts. We have 2 years after the pandemic, CMSD continues to meet or exceed Ohio's gap closing standards. Our 4-year graduation rate fell to 74% from 80, but we're looking at now having goals and some very aggressive goals and putting that back up. Our chronic absenteeism and K-3 literacy continues to be a challenge. And we call it learning loss, and we want to make up for that. And we have 13 schools that achieved a 4-star rating or higher, with 3 schools achieving 5 stars. And that's a rating system that Ohio has in the quality of the schools that we have here. This is just some of the partnerships that Cleveland have. I cannot tell you how important it is to have these partnerships. And it's one of the things that we consistently learn with regards to family engagement. This is not something any one person, one entity, one department can do on their own. This family engagement is a collaborative effort. It is definitely a collaborative effort, and we have to always remember that it is not by ourselves. And this is just some of the different partnerships that we have. It is not all about, there's no way I could have included all of them on here, but these are some of them, and they are very helpful. And the reason why I want to show you this is because our ultimate goal in family engagement is to link family engagement activities and strategies to learning. That's our ultimate goal. But how many of you know that even though that's our ultimate goal, that is not where we always get to start? You just can't walk in and say, okay, we're going to do some family engagement and we're going to link it to learning. Because the bottom line is that if a family does not have stability with regards to their basic needs, family engagement linked to learning will not be effective. It will not be taken seriously. So you have to address the basic needs of the family first. And that's the reason why I put this here, to show you that, is because we are still committed. We don't ignore the fact, we don't ignore it at all, that there are some certain needs that families have, that in order so that their home can be stable and they can look at other areas and think about how they could work in another area or expend energy of different areas. There's certain things that just have to be taken care of. So it's okay to start with helping families obtain their basic needs. And it's still family engagement, because the purpose of it is to get them to the place where they can help families, or families can concentrate or look at what are some of the things that they can do specifically that are linked to learning to help their child be more successful in school. We do adopt the dual capacity framework. And how many of you guys are familiar with our dual capacity framework by Dr. Karen Mapp, where we definitely recognize the fact that there are challenges that start with both, not just our educators, but our families as well, and that both may not have even been exposed to strong examples of family engagement. Neither the family nor the educator. They may not know what that looks like. We recognize that some educators, they have received minimal training. And many of the trainings I go to now, people are starting to ask, how many educators get formal training with regards to family engagement? And the hands in the room do not go up. A lot do not go up. So that's another reason why I absolutely am honored and thrilled at what you guys are doing today with this Best Practices Expo, because it's exposing our educators and our practitioners to some real good family engagement strategies and protocols and processes that normally are just kind of like hit or miss, or I'll try it and let's see how it happens and see what works. And it's a very good thing to be able to be exposed to some things that actually do work, and given an opportunity to see how you can make them work for you. We realize that educators may not see partnerships as an essential practice. We're focused on the education because it's an educational system. Yes, the core. Yes. We want to know about math, how we're scoring in math, how we're scoring in English. And they may have not developed they may have already developed a deficit mindset. Those families, how many of you heard that? Those parents, those families, that's a deficit mindset. Whenever I hear that, my antennas go up and I have to take the time to sit down for a minute and go, let's not generalize all of our parents. But I do recognize the fact that there's some experiences with regards to that mindset. And so what we seek to do is give people a new experience that will allow them to break that mindset and say, maybe not all. We also recognize that families may have had negative past experiences with schools and educators. We recognize that, and we have to think about all those things. And they may not feel invited to contribute. And even here, it says that they may feel disrespected, which has to do with that welcoming environment piece. Okay. And then we understand that there are essential conditions, there's policy and program goals. And then when implementing those conditions, making sure those conditions exist of mutual trust, relationship building, systemic policies embraced by leadership across the organization, integrated, embedded in all strategies, making sure those are in place, and having the policy and program goals that it will deliver us some outcomes that we want. This is an example of that whole family engagement umbrella that I talked about, that family engagement umbrella. We like to build the partnerships, and they're built through what we call low and high impact strategies. Okay. Now, I put this up because a lot of times what I hear people, a lot of districts, agencies, programs, schools talk about are, the potlucks and the fundraisers and the celebrations, the performances and the showcase, because we know families are going to show up then. They're going to show up. Because we like to see how our families, we like to see how our children perform, and then a spotlight. So they're going to they'll show up, and we don't negate that. We're not saying that, no, that's not family engagement. We're not doing that. Those are important because those help build partnerships. Those help build trust, but those are what we may put as low impact strategies, because what we want to do is move them to the high impact strategies, which on this end is what's actually linked to learning, gives us a direct link to learning. So we want to move families to not just coming in and participating in a celebration or a fundraiser or a potluck, or just kind of like sit and get. We want to hear parent perspective. We want to hear their thoughts and their feedback. We want them to be able to talk to us about what's best, what they believe is best for their child. How do their children best learn? What are some strategies that they believe would be effective in helping their child have a better experience at school? Sharing data with our families. It doesn't have to be an intimidating subject for our families to be able to understand data if we present it in a way that is understandable and easily digestible. Home visits are a great idea. Ongoing communication. We know that two-way communication is the best practice, two-way, not just feeding information, but giving families an opportunity to tell you what they think about the information that you've given them, giving them an opportunity to ask questions, to offer feedback and suggestions on how they believe would be some best strategies to support them and what's best for them. Modeling of learning support strategies, not just saying here, take this home and utilize this. No, but actually having activities where you sit down and say, let me show you how to use this and why we're using this and how is this connecting to what we're learning in class right now and why is it important. It's called teaching families how to have this educational discourse and understanding why are we doing this? Why is it important? Because I'll tell you a secret. One of the things that we found was more difficult than anything else after the pandemic was convincing children and families why it was important to come back to school. And as educators and people who have consistently been in this area, we don't have to think about it. You know, it's our job. It's where we work. It's what we do. So we don't have to think about why it's important. But for our families and our children, some were like, well, why I gotta come back in that building? Why do I have to learn this stuff? So we have to help our families understand the importance of why we are doing this. Why does this whole educational system exist? And what are some of the things that we are doing here, and how does it connect to your future in a positive way? Because this whole family engagement piece is what helps us with regards to making our children not just successful in school, but do you know that the research says that it helps them be successful in life? So that's the importance of it. And we don't have to really prove it because the research has done that for over 60 years. We just need to invite families and other educators into having the experience so that they can see that it actually does work. But we do these partnerships through what we call low impact strategies and high impact strategies. And I want you to think about that in both ways, because you could always take a low impact strategy and make it a high impact strategy, which is actually linked to learning. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. I just wanted to show you real quickly, one of the things that Cleveland does is we do a district-wide back to school meet and greet and open house every year, district-wide. Every school, all of those schools, over 99, provide, and within 2 days, we do a different one for high school, a different day for high school, and a different day for K-8 schools, so that we can accommodate families who may have children in both, and they don't have to choose which one that they have to go to. But we have a back to school meet and greet where we just have activities and welcome, staff are there, and we're all saying it's time to get back into school. You know, summer break is over. We're glad that you're back, and we are so ready to work with you and your children and making sure that they're academically successful. And we also do what we call our open house. Every school, we have that's district-wide, and it's a very successful event. We get close to 80 to 90% of our families who attend one or both of the back to school meet and greet and open house. And so what that tells us, because we do keep those, we keep that data, we keep that sign-in sheet, we take the numbers down and we look at that. And what it had showed us really quickly was that we have to really make sure that we are utilizing that time effectively. Because if we have 80 to 90% of our families walking into a school during that time, then we need to be able to make sure that we at least give them, one, make a good impression that says, we welcome you. We're glad you're here. We want to partner with you. And then this is who we are. This is what you can expect this school year. Tell us about yourself and about your child. Okay? So it's a time to build that relationship, to make that first touch, because that's an important piece. You never want the first touch to be negative. So as much as possible, that first touch during that school year should be a positive interaction, which is why we do this back to school meet and greet and open house. We have here, I want to show you, this is a small video. Yeah, I'm pretty good on time. We partner with our county's fatherhood initiative. And each year they do what he does, what we call a father's walk. And it is simply a day that we choose to have fathers walk their children to school. That's how the county started it. Fathers walk your children to school. So what we have done as a school is we pick up with that, because once we get them in the school, again, it's an opportunity to develop a positive relationship, to make a positive impact, to leave a lasting impression, to say, we want you here, you're important, and we want to partner with you. And so I want to show you, it's a really short video here.
Day walking to school, my son means a lot. It's an experience for me, because I never did a father and dad walk, but it's a lot, man. Keep me strong, keep me going.
We are honoring and celebrating this day, which is our annual Father's Walk. Was happy to start my day here and be joined with so many wonderful fathers and father figures of CMSD, and particularly fathers and father figures of our scholars here at Max Hayes. And it's just incredible to see so many of our fathers and father figures across our entire district coming alongside of us to do this important work, raising their hand to say we care, raising their hand to say it's important to have an education, and raising their hand to say it's important to be invested in our school districts.
I want hats off to the fathers that are here, because it's important that they be in their kids' lives, and these are memories that they'll cherish forever.
For me to be walking my son, it's a blessing, though. You know? Really,
If you don't support them, who will? You know, like that's what we got. Our kids, our family.
Today was very important. It's actually my very first Father's Walk. I just got custody of my daughter this year. So for me, this was like big time for me, since I've been waiting to do something like this. So
I want to show them that I care and I love them. Father's Walk is a great idea. It really allows fathers to come and, you know, support their kids, and I really like that.
So yes, that the Father's Walk is an extremely, what we did was the last Father Walk, which is in September of each year, we combined it with literacy this year. We purchased, the Office of Family and Community Engagement purchased some books that had to do with fathers, and distributed them to all the fathers who came and participated. And we talked about the importance of literacy and reading with the fathers. And this was not just K-8, you guys, this was high school as well. And they had great turnouts, even at the high schools, where fathers still came out, and we helped them to understand the importance of their presence in their child's life, and that it didn't matter if they were 14, 15, they were still needed in their child's life. And it was an absolute, it was heartwarming to see the looks on the child's faces, the students' faces, as they were able to walk with their fathers and be able to show what was happening around the school and what they did around the schools and partner with them. And from that, we formed different father groups where they still go on today. It's like they come in and do different father groups where they can talk about different things. And we have what we call parent cafes, where we help strengthen the family and talk about how they can be more of a support with their education. This here, we also have what we call a district-wide family engagement parent advisory committee, where we have representation from each one of the schools that come to the leadership, the district-wide leadership, where they meet with senior leadership and they participate in what we call collective problem solving. And through the parent lens, they are allowed to give feedback and suggestions and recommendations on the different issues or concerns or new initiatives that they're thinking about, and they get the parents' perspective on that. And they meet 4 times a year with the senior leadership on whatever district initiative that is up or concern that may be had. We actually do very well with our parent-teacher conferences because of House Bill 525. We have, it states that we should have at least a 90% parent-teacher conference rate. We support toolkits. That is another important time because Cleveland has a very high parent-teacher conference rate. So we provide what we call tools and a toolkit for not just only the educators, but our families as well, where we call it an academic playbook, where they have in there a list of questions that they need to ask the educators or things that the educators may need to share with the families. It's kind of like a structured conversation, just in case it doesn't happen organically. Then we have what we call the academic playbook, where we would help them to structure that conversation so that that time is extremely meaningful and effective. And simple questions like, what is my child expected to learn? How is he doing with this? What can I do at home to support his learning to ensure that he's successful? Simple questions like that. We have a dashboard, a parent-teacher conference dashboard, where teachers actually input when a family does come and have a conference, so that we'll be able to tell, because like I said, this is called part of our House bill. So we have to keep data on this and show what our rates are. And so we have a way that we can drill this down all the way to the student and see whether or not the student has had a parent-teacher conference. And the purpose of that is, of course, is so that if there are any students in there, then we could specifically pinpoint that family with outreach efforts and say, hey, we need to see you. We want to talk to you. We want to partner with you to help you understand how you can support, or how we can partner together to make sure that our children are successful. And it also produces a letter that goes out to the families that says, we haven't had a conference with you, and we need to be able to talk to you about it, okay? Another part is the integration into our school improvement plan. Each school does what we call an AAP, which is an academic achievement plan. And I know that every school does it and probably names it something different, but ours is called an AAP. And this is where they actually come together and they talk about what are the goals for the year? What are we going to work on collectively? And because our schools are union-based, all our schools are union-based, this AAP plan, the goals that they work on, are voted on by the educators and staff at the schools. They're voted on, and it has to pass their votes to be able to be accepted and adopted. In here, you can see that at the top, they have academic goals. Then they have a goal for subgroups, because we want to make sure that we're not leaving out those who are English language learners, gifted, those who may have chronic absenteeism, those who are in special education, those who may have different academic challenges where it just may be that their test scores and they scored below basic. Like, how are you addressing those special subgroups? And what goals do you have to help them? We need to see that. And then you can see at the very bottom, and this is where it was a major win for us in negotiating with the union, is that we were able in each school's academic achievement plan to add a family and community engagement goal. A family and community engagement goal, which is huge, because here's the thing, you guys, what I found in the years of working in our schools is that oftentimes I have met with educators and staff who who think of family engagement as one more thing to do. And it's not, it makes it pretty challenging to come in and convince someone who already has a full plate. Let me add something else on there for you and get it done. Where going in through the AAP or the Academic Achievement Plan, which is something they have already decided upon. They have already worked on and decided this is what we're going to do. So we come in and add supports. So that family engagement goal is right there. We support them by giving them examples of what to write. And you can see here, because if you look in the left-hand column where it says AAP goal, and the family engagement goal says utilize electronic grade books so families can frequently monitor their children's progress. That's a goal that they could put on their AAP. And we, as the FACE department, will come in and offer every support that we can to ensure that they accomplish that goal. It's what we call low-hanging fruit, because they've already decided they're going to do it. We don't have to come in and convince them to do it. We don't have to beg, borrow, steal, or anything like that. They've already decided they want to do it, and it is in their goal, and they've also put in the different strategies. What my staff does with the FACE coordinators who work with the schools directly, they take the goal, the AAP goal, and they fill out this AAP planning tool. And I ask them, tell me specifically, how are you going to support this school in accomplishing that family engagement goal? This is our way of helping them to implement a strategy so that they can have a different experience. Because once they start to do things to ensure that families understand and are looking at their electronic grade books, they're going to start to have a different experience with the families. They're going to experience families asking questions. They're going to experience families supporting their children and getting work done. They're going to have families who give recommendations on supports and resources they need in order to get the work done. That's what you call different experiences. And then at the end of that, what we expect to see is students successfully being successful academically. And that's the process of moving it to linking it to learning. And you can see here that on the right-hand side, this FACE coordinator stated, I'm going to help them by offering support to the building staff with best practice strategies on how to communicate with families. That makes much sense, doesn't it? Because we have to be able to talk to them, tell them what they need and what we're doing with regards to the grade books. He says, also, I'm going to assist with workshop planning and support, because if we want the families to utilize the grade books, then we need to show them how to use it. Makes sense. And it may cause us to peel back layer by layer, but this is the thing about family engagement, you guys, is when we come up with a goal, we can't be discouraged because that initial goal may not be attainable, but it may be that we've recognized or pulled back the covers on something else that needs to be accomplished first. And the example would be for this one is if I want families to utilize electronic grade books, what if I find out with that my families don't have access to internet? Then we have to pull back, come back, and then we help families gain internet. Then I might find out that, they have internet and they each have a laptop or a device, because Cleveland does ensure that every student has a device. We may have families that says, I don't know how to use it. So we got to do some workshops and planning and support to help them understand how to use it. And do you see how in that one AAP goal, do you see how much is getting accomplished with regards to family engagement? All just within that one goal. He also says he's going to encourage grade level family meetings to offer targeted sessions to understand and interact with electronic grade books. That makes sense. So this is just an example, and this is done with every school. Every school has an AAP. Every school has a family engagement goal, and every school will get this planning tool to help them understand what supports we will be able to offer them. It all has to do with clarity, you guys. Family engagement is such a broad topic, and it's not so much a thing as it is a process. Family engagement is a process. It's the way you do things. It's not so much what, but it's how you do things, okay? So when we say family engagement, we have to be able to define that. What does that mean when we say family engagement specifically, okay? And that starts with assessing your school and where you are. So I want to take a minute, and if you could share in the chat, or if anybody, if it's okay, Matthew can come off of speaker and talk to me a little bit about what is your school, district, or organization's planning structure for family engagement? How do you plan your family engagement activities? Is it one person in the office on the third floor who makes all of the decisions about what activities families will be involved in? How do you plan those activities?
Tamara, you have your hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, good morning. So thank you so much for this training. That's a really good question. So we're at the district level, and what we've done before, what we are doing this year is surveying principals and families. And then we're doing a lot of events and trainings for them. But I really like what you said about low impact, high impact. But I'm trying to also understand outside of the trainings about how do you help with math, how we teach math, what more can we do at the district level? I get at the campus level, but at the district level as high impact strategies.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamara. Yes. And I'm going to, at the district level, you have to be very careful at the district level, because a lot of the core, like math and English, social studies, it's literally dependent upon the classroom, right? So what we've done at the district level to help is, and I'll give you an example of something that we just did. Our Office of Family and Community Engagement, we were able to purchase some literacy packs, some literacy packets, like Lakeshore. They were able to put together some literacy packets. What we did was we purchased some of those literacy packets, take-home family engagement packets, and we partnered with Lakeshore to provide a training to schools who wanted them. Lakeshore is literally going to provide a training for any school who wants those packets. We're going to provide them to them and say, look, we have the packets for you. If you would like to take advantage of these resources that we have, all we need you to do is to commit to the training and then have a literacy night that utilizes them. Period. That's it. And then we step out. Okay. And that's one of the ways that we utilize it at the district level, because other than that, there's a lot of family engagement. The crux or core of the family engagement happens at the school level. It happens at the school level because that's where the rubber meets the road, where the student meets the actual grade, the assessment, is happening, where the learning is actually happening in the classroom, is in the school. So at the district level, we basically provide supports. And sometimes, now, let me go back and say this too. Because we're all Title I, all of our schools receive a Title I allocation that we allocate to them at the beginning of the school year, what their Title I allocation is. And we have so many supports and different resources and how to utilize those funds, because we know that there is major allowable and unallowable costs when it comes to Title I funding. But we give them their money at the top of the year. Okay. So sometimes they'll utilize that money real quickly and sometimes they won't. But sometimes, more often, it's limited. It's limited. Because if you have a school of 700 kids, you know it's going to take quite a bit of resources to be able to have Title I funds for family engagement that can actually be effective for all 700 families. So the FACE department will come along and do different things to provide supports that they may not be able to have on their own at their school, and just say, here's an extra boost. And that's what we did with that piece, in purchasing those literacy kits for the families and then offering it to them, but not just throwing it at them and saying, here's some resources. We want you to be able to use that. Here's some resources. No, we want to make sure, just like what we ask you to do with your families, we're going to do it with you. Meaning, we're going to sit down, we're going to talk to you exactly what's the best use of this? What is this? What is the best use of this? And how does this, why is this important? And then have a way to follow up with this. And I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Really good feedback. Love to hear more.
Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else would like to share what is your structure in planning for family engagement? Is it a collaborative effort?
I would like
Is
to
it one
share
person?
also with what she was asking, what do we do at the district level? Because I'm also at the district level and I'm at Waller ISD. And what we do at the district level is support the school so that they worry about those relationships and those low impact where we build the trust, but we support them in all the stuff that they need. But we also do like our district wide systems that we have, like Skyward, the is our student information system. We provide a training for the entire district virtually. Of course, schools can also do that, but we already have a training because it's district wide. The entire district uses Skyward. We also do a Canvas training for our families, and it looks a little bit different from elementary and secondary. And of course, each school uses it a little bit differently in grade levels, right? But because it's our learning management system throughout their district, we also provide that training to our entire families. And then we also do STAR, because STAR is also it's statewide, right? And so we hold a STAR night where we teach our parents how to access those scores and go into the portal, and then looking at those resources, seeing what their children missed and all that other good stuff. And so that parents also have that, because it's district wide. And so anything that we can pull away from them that they don't have to worry about, or we either go and support them with that as well. And so we always usually we build trainings and then we send those to the school, and they can make it campus specific or make little tweaks or something. That's kind of like how we support the district level. Of course, we also help with their compliance, and we also help with any other items that they might need and resources. But things that we do district wide, that's what we try to do, a training, so that they don't have to worry about providing those trainings. And like you said, yes, curriculum nights are very specific to the classroom and to the campus.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And let me explain something too about Cleveland, you guys, is out of all of our schools, one of the things that we have held dearly and continue to this day, even with the new CEO, is that our schools have autonomy, a certain amount of autonomy, where they choose curriculums, they choose communication tools, they choose a lot of different things. So that limits excuse me, that also limits what we do district-wide, but it does ensure that we go in to the school and support that school in what they're doing, and much like what was just mentioned. One of the things that we do at each school as well, which makes it a lot easier because as I mentioned before, there's no way, this work can be done by one person. This is a collaborative effort. And so one of the things that we do at the beginning of each year is we go into each one of our schools and we establish what we call a family engagement committee. We look for champions, family engagement champions in each school, and develop a committee. We start with the principal because we allow the principal the autonomy to be able to say, I want to be a part of that committee, or we allow them to delegate. All we need is someone within that school that is able to say that I will champion family and community engagement. And we allow for space for whoever wants to be on there. It does not mean that it has to be the principal. It does not have to be administration. It does not have to be a teacher. It could be the secretary. It could be the janitor if he decides, I want to help you with family engagement. It's whoever wants to be. So we establish that committee first during the beginning of the year. And some of the things that we actually do on that committee is we ensure that the school has a two-way communication strategy. And that may sound simple, but that is not simple, because sometimes we may think that, well, I do a newsletter. And so I'm communicating with my families. But remember, best practices is two-way communication. And a newsletter, is there a way for the families to get back to you and ask questions about what's in there? So there's a capacity building piece that's built within this family engagement committee. Our FACE coordinators are a standing member of every FACE family engagement committee of the schools that they work with. They are a standing member, and their capacity building piece, meaning that if they get to a school who believes that newsletters are good enough and they don't have to go any further, then the FACE coordinator is the one responsible to sit down with the committee and say, let me talk to you about best practices and why we believe that two-way communication is the best practice, and how can we take that newsletter and turn it into something that does provide two-way communication. Like, could we add some links in there? Can we add phone numbers or email addresses or links to websites or even a survey, or how did we do? So it's different things like that that's added, that's talked about in that committee. And these committees meet monthly. They also plan the engagement activities and programs that are aligned to the AAP priorities and linked to learning. So in this committee, they sit down and they go, they may look at data and go, what do we need to do? Where is it that we need to focus our attention, our efforts, our resources? Where do we need to do that? And it isn't just the annual literacy night. It may be that we need to focus this year on our third graders and provide some supports and resources that families can take home through parent meetings, but then have a third grade literacy night. You want to be strategic about it and not just do things because they've always been done, but do things because they've shown themselves to be effective. Okay. We in the family engagement committee, they ensure that parent input in planning and decision making, because on that committee, guess who's on there? Parents. Yes, there's some parents sitting right on that committee who are giving feedback and talking about, well, because you always want that parent lens. That parent lens is extremely important. it's organic from there. All we need to do is make sure that we're listening. Listening is extremely valuable tool in implementing effective family engagement strategies. The committee works with families and community partners to create social events and programs which share resources and build a sense of community. That's where those low impact strategies come in. Like I said, we don't ignore those, and we don't say, well, we're not doing those, because we know everyone needs to have fun and needs to feel good about what they're doing and feel good about what they're being a part of. They use the committee to create volunteer opportunities, which support student success. And then it offers professional learning and programming to build capacity of educators and families. That's that capacity building piece, because we're all what our ultimate goal is as the FACE department is to make it so that our schools are implementing effective engagement strategies without us. We're successful there. If I see that schools are developing action plans and building activities, and they're utilizing best practice strategies, and they're just looking to us to support or maybe consult with, we know that we're doing what we need to do. This here is what I call the tier structure. And this is where I mentioned earlier, where family engagement is so broad. It is so broad. And I found that at Cleveland, when I first came into the department, we had some very broad definitions of family engagement. And one of the first things that I did was sat down and said, what specifically, black and white, when I walk in the room, I could call it out and see it and say, that's an effective family engagement level of implementation. And you could see on here, the first part where it says accomplished, it says has a family engagement platform each quarter. I could call you either did or didn't. It's black and white. It's not, well, I almost had one or I could have had one. No, you did or didn't. Has an established form of two-way communication that is kept up to date. You either do or don't. So I implore you guys on this call to sit down, to come up with at least, I'm going to say at least four specific activities that you could look at and point your finger at and say, yes, they are utilizing effective family engagement strategies with your program, agency, or school organization. This is specific to Cleveland. This may not work for every school, but this is specific to Cleveland, but it helped us to be very clear, because what I have found out specifically, not just in our education system, but I'm talking about in life, you guys, clarity is a gift. When you have to be clear about what are you expecting, because I can come in and say, well, I need you to do effective family engagement. But then I don't know what that means. What are you looking for? And so here I was able to give them a clear idea of what we're looking for. We want to make sure that at least you have greater than 90% attendance at your parent-teacher conference. Yes or no? That you held all the district mandated activities, the meet and greets and the open house, parent-teacher conferences. Yes or no? You completed all your action plans and building permits accurately and timely. Yes or no? So that list there, so I encourage you that this is just basically a starting point, because if we don't have a clear understanding of our expectations of family engagement, why would we expect anyone else to? We can't. And then and the needle will move, it'll do like this all over the place, where we want to be able to measure progress. And in order to measure progress, we have to have a starting point. So this particular structure here are used with my FACE coordinators to assess the schools. Where are they? Where are they? They're either in the accomplished level, they're either in the skilled level, or they're either in the developing level. And all this means, and the schools usually don't see this. This is for the FACE coordinators to assess the schools and go in and say, well, do they have this? Do they have that? And if, for instance, they don't have anyone, they don't have any established platform for parent meetings, at least quarterly, because that's Title I language, you guys. That's not something that's negotiable. Then we have to go, well, I need to help them get there. So it helps me as the FACE coordinator to plan my efforts and my resources, because the foundation of family engagement work for Cleveland, because we're 100% Title I schools, is ensuring that we meet 100% Title I compliance. That's foundation. That's the floor. Nothing less is acceptable. Nothing less is acceptable. So that's where our efforts go in, basically assessing, are we meeting our Title I compliance? Are we meeting our Title I compliance? And if we are not, you better believe that's where the effort, energy is going, to make sure that we get there first. And then we go to building upon that, to making family engagement an effective integrated strategy into the different school activities. I want to show you this piece here, and this is an extremely important piece when it comes to our Title I family engagement compliance. And this is a form that we created that helps us to kind of weed out whether or not our schools are delivering effective family engagement according to Title I standards. And we call it an action plan. And this particular action plan is what has to be submitted with every activity that's utilizing Title I funds. If you are using Title I funds, you have to have this form filled out and attached to your request for funds. It is this process, you guys, that has kept us Title I compliant through every audit for the past, I've been there 7, and I think it's been more than 12 years. More than 12 years. And I want to show you this. I want to go through this real quickly so you can understand the components of it and how important it is. At the first part here on the left-hand side, it shows where you, of course, it shows you the date the plan was completed, the school name, the activity name, give you a little creativity. But we have a space here where we want to know who planned the activity. Again, was this somebody on the 3rd floor in the corner who just decided, let's do this, and utilize the funds and didn't ask for any support, feedback, or input from anybody else? We expect to see that there were a couple of different people involved, specifically a parent involved in this planning. We look for that. Then we want to know, is it aligned to your academic achievement plan? I mean, that's the first place we want to go to utilize our efforts and our energies and our resources, because remember, this is the place where everybody has already agreed that we're going to do this. That's the first place. We don't have to do any cajoling. We don't have to do any manipulation. We don't have to do, no, we've all already agreed we're going to accomplish this goal. So we want to know, tell me what it has to do with your AAP plan. Then we want you to mark the identified areas that it align with. And we have 5 areas here. We have the instructional core. We have the college career readiness. We have attendance. We have social emotional learning. and we have one that has to do with building family capacity. And the important part about this area is all 5 of those areas are Title I allowable activities. And that's the only choices they have. That's the only choices they have. They need, we're already weeding out. We're already weeding out here. So we needed to have to do with one of those 5 different areas because those are Title I allowable. Then we have an area where we talk about what tier does this activity fall up under? Is it universal, targeted, or intensive? It could be either one, but I'll tell you something that we've learned is that a lot of times with the limited funds that we have use of, that it is good not to have all universal activities, that there is merit in having some intensive and targeted activities where you get a better bang for your buck, because what has happened a lot. And the pandemic actually slowed this down for us a lot, is a lot of the funds were used for food, for universal activities. There was a lot of money used to purchase food. When the pandemic hit, and of course, we went to straight virtual, and there was no in-person activities, we found that those Title I funds were being able to be used a lot more with purchasing resources and activities that families could take home and use. And we used the virtual trainings or meetings to explain how to utilize them, and just had where they could come in and pick up the resources, or they were delivered to them. But that universal, targeted, and intensive, we monitor. And if schools are too heavy with universal, then remember the family engagement committee with the FACE coordinators, we go in and build capacity on why is it important or more effective or even great to utilize the other strategies for targeted and intensive. Then on the second part here, you'll see at the top where it says, give us a description of the activity. Tell us what the activity is about. What are you doing? And it doesn't have to be a thesis. It could be a couple of sentences, just clear. Remember clarity, the gift. And then this pointed question here, what will families learn from this activity? Because that's the acid test of whether or not it's going to be allowable, Title I funds allowable. There has to be a way that you're building the capacity of the family. Even if we talked about math, if you're having a family engagement math night, then you have to show me, how are you teaching the family how to utilize the math strategies or understand the math that you're teaching in school? It all comes back to, how are we building the capacity of the family? So they have to be able to answer that question. And then we ask, of course, when will it take place, the date or the time? And then we go, what forms of communication will we use to promote your activity? And that's specifically so that we know that marketing is not a barrier to attendance. There has been many times where we have found that there's marketing for an activity on today, which is Tuesday, and the activity is tomorrow. That's not fair. That's not fair to our families. It's not fair to anyone. What it shows us is that was a checkbox activity, that it wasn't an intentionally planned family engagement activity. And then we ask for expected attendance and list any POs. And then a major part here is we require 3 signatures when this plan is submitted. We require the principal to sign to show that she's aware this is her building, their building, and she's aware and she's in agreement with this activity. We want a parent to sign to show that they are aware, that they've given their input, recommendations, and they're in agreement that this is a good activity. And then our FACE coordinator signs it after they review the whole plan to determine if everything was okay. And then they sign it And then the signed copy is uploaded into the system where you access the funds to purchase what it is that you need to make sure that this activity can happen. And this has cut out so much. It has cut out so much confusion, so much back and forth, where our finance department will deny it and say, oh, no, you can't do that because that's not Title I. No. Well, as our FACE department, this plan actually helps us to review any activity planning, even if we're not there in the room. They submit this plan to us for our signature. And then our signature, our review of it allows us to ask any questions that we may have and then help them to understand. And then if there are any pieces on here that we have questions about, it's an opportunity for us to build capacity again, because we're always looking to build the capacity of the schools, because we need everybody's help on this. This is not something that we can all do by ourselves. And Matthew, I am looking at the time, and I could talk for probably, I don't know how much longer, but I'm going to stop right here just to see if there are any specific questions.
You're like that really good preacher that, when learning's really good in church, you just tell them to keep going. You don't care what time it is. So Carla, we are scheduled till 11, so you got some time. I did want to give Tori Hernandez a chance to unmute and be able to share out with the group.
Carla, I think your programming is amazing, but I wanted to touch base with you whenever you were talking about the curriculum nights, like with district wide. So this is where I'm experimenting. And so this is our second year, like going into trying to do the district wide event. But I guess what we have utilized is using the teaching and learning team. So like if it's a math night, we'll use the person who creates the math curriculum, and then she utilizes the math coaches to also be part of the planning process. So if the next set of TEKS is about to come out, that is what we will focus on that ELA, on that math night. And so this was the first time we extended it, and it seemed it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was a lot. And so when you were talking about the Lakeshore kids, I mean, I understand why we had to do it just to do it. Like we did it. It was great. The parents loved it, but we're a tiny team. And so it really took a lot from us to get it done. And so have you experimented with, like, because I would love to keep the math. Like I think Lana, like she had all the coaches there. It was a buy-in. The schools were represented because then the kids wanted to come because they had their coach there from their school, and everything was set for the learning objectives for the next 6 weeks that was coming up. But I guess my question is, to make it streamlined, to make it better, like, as I was thinking how you were talking about the Lakeshore, have you experimented with Lakeshore of maybe having a meeting with the teaching and learning or whoever is creating the curriculum, and then aligning it? Because see, they used a lot of stuff that they used in the classrooms. I totally get that. I think it was, I think it was great, but I'm trying to think, okay, we want to keep this going. Like, we have to find a way to make it easier. And so I really liked how you talked about the Lakeshore part, but have you had like a collaboration of where it's maybe the teaching and learning and to where they come up with the kit, and how far in advance was it, I guess, more or less, because it was a lot of work.
Yeah, that sounds like it, Tori, and that you're exactly correct. That's one of the reasons why what we have found is that it is, and specifically, I was going to say Lakeshore, but there are a couple of other organizations who do the work for us. Let me say it that way, who actually understand about the core instructional core and where every grade level and different things, and break it down. And we have a Lakeshore representative who will come sit in our office, who will talk to us and go, what do you think? What's happening with your schools? What are some of the things that you think we should be looking at? And what are some of the things that you think we should be producing for you? And that's just that's
Yeah.
a customer service tool of
Mhm.
Lakeshore, that they are not sitting siloed somewhere going, this is what they want. No, they sit down with us, and they come to us and they talk to us, and we sit down and talk and go, well, you know what? I find that there's not a whole lot of things for high schoolers. Like, can you help us with that and figure that out and put together some things for us with regards to high school literacy and math? And then we specifically ask for different things that are relevant to families, that are relevant. Like, don't just give me a sheet that says 5 + 5 = 10, and I have to, and I got some flashcards. Like, what does adding look like at home? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, that's like building a recipe. Okay, help cooking with the family. Okay, well, can you give me something on that? And we trust Lakeshore to do that work. Because, Tori, there's nobody's plate that I know of that's not full.
Mhm. Yeah,
Nobody.
it was a labor of love, and we did it, but I'm thinking of how do we streamline it, and the ELA one's coming up. I feel like it's going to be a little, I mean, we're learned from the first one. It's just a lot of coordinating and work, and getting everything made and bought and put
Oh.
together. And yeah.
I'll share something else with you real quick. What we have also quickly found out, because remember, a little while ago, I explained to you how each one of our schools have autonomy in choosing their curriculum. Now, it's not
Mhm.
that they can pull it out from anywhere. There's a list of vetted curriculums that we give the schools and say, you can choose from these. So the schools have it. But what we found is that all of those curriculums that were chosen have a family engagement component already built into it. No one was looking. No one
Mhm.
looked at it. No one explored it far enough to see that there's something here that's already planned.
Mhm.
That's already. I got excited on that one, because I'm thinking we were trying to figure it out, and it's like, no, it's already done.
Mhm.
It just needs to be pulled out and utilized in certain things. Like, how many of you have heard of the curriculum of what's his name? Stephen Covey.
Uh,
Um
I'm looking. Oh
um
goodness.
yeah,
I know what you're saying though.
effective habits, and there's a curriculum. But in that curriculum, he already has made booklets for parents at home that align what they're doing in a classroom with what you can do with parents at home. Our literacy curriculum already has a whole, each one of them that we're utilizing has a whole parent engagement mentoring piece to it. But that was one of the things that really saved us as a department, because we do have, of course, as a school district, we have our literacy specialists, our
Mhm.
social studies, math. We have all those who we could pull on and say, help us. But then too, they have a lot of planning and training and things that they have to do, like you mentioned. But these are things that's already embedded in the curriculums that we're using. So it's already there. And it's like, why? And you know how they used to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and most of the schools though that we chose this year, we were very intentional of going in, and where these nights are held are on schools that we're watching for academic. So they don't know that they were chosen that
Mm,
way, but it's
mm,
also modeling
mm,
of for academic purposes as
mm,
well as family engagement, just so that way the district has come in and has provided quality, intentional programming. So then that way, that's part of the school of being able for it to have that safety net, I think,
mhm,
more or less.
mhm.
So that was something we added as well. But yes, okay, I thank you so much because I just wanted to pick your brain. Thank
Yes,
you.
you're welcome at all. And yes, it was a very much of a joy to be able to utilize those components of the curriculums and pulling them out because they would otherwise they would just sit there. And it's like, nope,
So much.
got it. Um, were there any more questions before I go on again? Oh, wait a minute. I would like to ask that if you were unable to, oh, okay, that's Shannon. Okay. And Matthew?
Yes, there was actually one question on here. We had somebody ask if you can elaborate just a little bit more on the parent signature for your action plan. How do you use that to fulfill the engagement action plan?
Yes, the parent signature piece is just in case they missed it at the top. Like, it's not, well, right now we have a lot of different ways in which we're kind of closing that gap at this particular point with our parent ambassador program. But in the event that a group, that family engagement committee, had to get together and come up with a activity to utilize Title I funds and the parent was not available, then they may not be in the top part where it says team members who planned the activity, but we're going to make sure you come around the back and you're going to get a parent to look at it and give you some recommendations some kind of way, meaning that this plan is not valid without a parent signature. And that means that the parent has to review this plan first and ask questions, recommendations, and only then, if they're satisfied and they're okay with the plan, they're supposed to sign it. This plan is not valid without the parent signature. And it just shows us that you did still consult with the family or parent prior to submitting this plan, which is one of the major components of what we wanted to see happen. Was that good?
I think that got that covered, Miss Carla.
Okay. Okay. How much more time do I have?
About 20 minutes.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm going to keep going. And I want to share with you, this is our rubric. This is our rubric. This is that foundational piece and how we work with our schools. It's foundational, meaning, remember how I stated that all of our schools are Title I and compliance is not an option. This rubric here is what helps our schools stay within Title I compliance. And what this rubric does is it breaks down our support quarterly because each school has natural stops. And ours is at the end of each quarter. We stop. It might be a place where schools are doing short-term assessments. It might be places where schools are reviewing their AAPs. It might be places where they're just stopping for a moment to say, how are we doing so far? Because when I first came to our district, what I realized is that we were waiting till probably about April or May before we started to review for certain things. And it made the end of the year nothing less than hectic. And I don't know about you guys, but stress It's just not something that I want to work with every day. So I wanted to develop a system to where we are at those natural stops at the end of each quarter are doing checks and going, okay, this is how we want you to align this family engagement throughout the school year, how it should be integrated throughout the school year. And so you'll see where it says first quarter, and you have those checks during the first quarter, those things are naturally welcoming activities, because that's where they should be happening. So this particular rubric, and the schools do see this rubric, they see this rubric, because we want them to understand, remember, clarity is a gift. We want them to see exactly what we are expecting them to do. And these are not suggestions. They're not. So we have our two-way monthly communication strategy. That should be established at the beginning of the year. It should be established at the beginning of the year. And you will see that for two-way communication strategy, it is a checkpoint at the end of each quarter to make sure you still have that going, because there is no time that you should not be implementing effective communication strategies. There's no time. It's okay not to do that, to not communicate to your families. Communication is a relationship building tool. So it should always be happening, always be happening. And if you talk about best practices, it should be consistent. I shouldn't get a communication from you every first month in August, and then I'll hear from you again to November. And then maybe I'll hear from you right before Christmas, and then I'll hear from you again in April. No, it needs to be consistent. So we check for that. The meet and greet, which is the activity at the beginning, which establishes a welcoming environment, establishing that family engagement committee at the beginning of the year. Open house. And at our open house is where we do our Title I meeting. And that is a Title I compliance area where we must tell families about Title I and their rights, and then that allocation, and give them opportunity to give us feedback on how they believe we should spend that money that they get. And that's a mandate of Title I. So we combine that with open house, because open house, remember, I told you, is about 80 to 90% of our families are there. So we want to make sure we get them that information then. And we do a survey, which tells us real early what the family, some recommendations and feedback that the families can give us that can help us plan for the rest of the year. We present our engagement policy and school compact. We present it because we've actually worked on it at the end of the last school year. So we're not going into the school year working on it. No, we got it, and we're presenting it. Because COVID threw us all into this virtual world, we know that school websites and any virtual resources that we have must be kept up to date and utilized, because it is a way that today's parents are going to seek information. They're going to, if we have we have a district website, and each one of our schools have their own website, and each one of our departments have their own website. So at any given point or time, a parent or community partner or person should be able to go on our website and get information. The key is it needs to be up to date and relevant. So the first quarter, we have a list of things that need to be accomplished within that first quarter. And we check that, and we make sure that those things are done, and the FACE coordinators are there to support the schools in accomplishing every last one of those things that's on that first quarter. And when what happens afterwards is they give them a summary, a report to say, this is what you've done, or we haven't received this. And what it does is it prevents us from working or scrambling so hard in the fourth quarter for something that should have been done in the first quarter. Then we move to the second quarter, and we'll see that there's a couple of things added in there. Some things are taken off, like I'm not checking for the meet and greet anymore. I'm not checking for the open house anymore. I am still looking for that communication strategy and your FEC committee and your parent portal with up-to-date information. But I've added on parent-teacher conferences now, because that's where our parent-teacher conferences start. And Cleveland gives parents the opportunity 3 times to do a parent-teacher conference. We offer one in the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. And then we have quarterly family engagement activities and our parent meetings. So we check for those to make sure that they're happening. And in the third quarter, you kind of see that again there. And you can see at the end of the third quarter, we're starting to look at pulling together a group of parents at each school to start working on that policy and that compact and looking at it and going, how did it go this year? What do we need to do differently? What worked well? And what are the opportunities that we have to do things differently? And we do it at the end of the year as opposed to at the beginning of the year, because we want to start the year off with some solid foundation with regards to our policies and our compacts. And then we have our fourth quarter, which is basically almost the same thing as well. And you can see that one of the components that are added on the fourth quarter is that parent signature is on that school's AAP. That document, this is where we're supporting the schools in implementing another family engagement strategy of including parents in the development of the school goals. And how can we assure, at least to the smallest amount that you're doing that, is having that parent, the same way that parent signs off on that action plan, that parent has to sign off on your AAP. And there's a space on there next to the union chairperson, the principal, and other people on the committee or the AAP. Right next to their signature, it says parent signature. And there has to be a parent that signs and reviews the AAP to see if they have any questions, feedback, or recommendations. Because that's the whole, I have found that we are very good, and rightfully so, because many of us worked hard. We've had a lot of experience. We have education in developing systems, protocols, and policies. But one of the things that we cannot consider ourselves experts on is our parents' perspective. That has to be included. And I have found that is the magic part of this whole family engagement piece, is ensuring that you have parent perspective. And my work has been to simply ensure that that's there, that's included. And that is our whole structure and what we do with the district parent advisory committee, with the parent ambassadors, with the action plan and the planning of the activities, with the family engagement committee, is to ensure that at every place where there's decision making, that we have parents that are able to give their input. Beverly, I see your hand up.
I was asking about the budget usage, what those, oh, I see it below. Okay, never mind.
Okay. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's also the other piece that was about to drive me crazy is waiting to the end of the year to see where people were with spending their Title I funds. And by that time, people, it didn't become more, it became less of whether or not this was a good, effective use of the funds. It became, let's get the money spent. And different things were being suggested, like, I'm going to get 20 boxes of paper. Like, no. Because we all know that with Title I funds, it has to be utilized the current year. You can't stockpile and get things to utilize for the next year. It has to be for this year. So what we did was broke down the expectation of the usage of those Title I funds per quarter, so that by the time we get to the end of the quarter, then we have a good amount of the funds spent. And it causes the schools to plan earlier and not as an afterthought. Because that's what would happen. I mean, there's a lot on our plates. There's a lot of things that needs to happen. And a lot of times this would kind of fall down on the list of priorities. So this is a piece where we keep it on the top of the list of priorities at the end of each quarter. And I'm going to show you that real quick.
In Texas, when we talk about Title I funding, we talk about wants versus needs. And based on what those needs are, rather than working, well, we got this much money, what can we do with it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a way that we can kind of keep track of those things. When it comes to the action plan, we actually, let me go back here. We collect evidence of each one of these activities. We collect evidence. And we filter it into a system that allows us to show where each school is and what they've done for each quarter. And you can see the marking period. This is the third quarter. And these are the things that were supposed to be done. And this particular school got them done. So they got it accomplished. But you can see here, this school missed a couple of them, so they are developing. So schools are able to see this. The schools are able to see it, the network leaders, the executive director, the CEO, the chiefs, whoever wants to see this can see this. This is data for them. And you can see at the top here on the right-hand corner, it tells us where we were at the third quarter with regards to spending our Title I funds, okay? And what we do is we took those like sign-in sheets from like the activities, meet and greet, open house, all the different activities that they had, and we put them into a form that we created in Teams. Okay. And it's just simply has the network, the school, the program name, the grade band, the tier, the focus, the date, the attendance, and we upload the document. And it gives us a dashboard that shows us exactly what schools have done in a data format. Okay. Where you could see here on the left-hand side, it tells us the schools, the different number of programs, the year-to-date interactions. It tells us by network, because of the many number of schools that we have, the way that we break it down is by network. We have 2 high school networks and 4 K-8 networks. It tells us the average attendance down on the bottom right-hand corner for each one of their activities. It tells us what were some of the program focus areas, the bottom left-hand corner. So we can see what most of, like if I look here at 21.36% here was more than likely that if you hover over it, because this is a picture, but if you hover over it, it'll tell you that more than likely this was probably an open house. And then you could see it by network. Let me go back one more. And over here in the right-hand side middle, you'll see the blue and orange. It tells us the tiers, and this is how they're utilizing the money. So this blue tells us that a lot of the activities were universal, but then we have some that were targeted and probably a couple that were intensive. And this is what our FACE office utilizes. And when we do our planning with the schools, because we'll look at it and say, okay, we're doing a lot of tier 1. Now, our FACE goal for schools is to encourage and build their capacity to do more targeted activities. And so I will monitor this to ensure that that number increases where the orange is. So that's how we use the data. But schools are privy to this as well. And then they could do it by network, where it breaks it down in even further into the schools. Now, do I believe that all of our schools, principals, CEOs sitting down looking at that dashboard? Absolutely not. However, I'm still going to provide a way for them to get the information. So we do what we call data reports every quarter, where we look at the data ourselves, our FACE coordinator, the FACE coordinators and myself, we sit down and we look at the data and we develop a one-page report that we will send to our schools based upon that data that says, this is what you've done. These are the activities that you've done. Here's your budget overview, your original allocation, the percent that you've spent so far, how much you have left. And then I'm gonna give you some suggestions on how to spend that money. And you can see here that it has nothing to do with food. It's an effective way to utilize that money. Like, consider books to support college survival, because this is a high school. And you might want to have a parent meeting for seniors, parent meeting of seniors, and talk to them about how they can best support their child during the transition to college. And there are many, many books that can be supported with that. Planners for rising seniors. I think it's Channing Beat. They have this wonderful calendars, junior and senior calendars that you can order. And it has each month has activities to prepare for graduation. It's just that simple, but it's a beautiful tool. Hosting a rising senior informational session. So we give schools activities, and down at the bottom, we talk about opportunities and recommendations. And what I found is that our staff will read this before they read the dashboard, before they look at the dashboard, because it's in an easy, simple to read format, and it allows us to extract the data, extract information from the data that we collect and put it in usable format, that they can literally take it and go, I can do that, or I understand that. And then we take these reports and give them to the whole family engagement committee, so that when they're meeting monthly, they're looking at this as well. And I think that will be it. So I just ask you to consider, what family engagement data are you collecting and how you can use it to inform your practice, because even the smallest amount of data that you use can be used to inform your practice, because the data is what is, and we're always trying to move people towards more effective integrated practices. It's not a one-hit wonder. It's not something that it's a one and done. It is a continual process that we ensure that people are utilizing to, first of all, welcome families, and second of all, be inclusive of the parent perspective and lens, and receive their feedback. And we know that it's just not enough to receive their feedback. You need to use it, and you need to show them how you're using it if you want them to continue to be a partner. Because if you kept asking me my opinion about something and never used anything I said, pretty soon I'm going to stop talking to you. But you want to include in every step of the way, however you can, that parent perspective, and then listen. And then listen. Because it is an absolute wonderful thing when you are able to get that perspective and see the effectiveness or the growth that can happen for not just the students, but for the parents, families, and educators as well. It's organic. It happens. It automatically happens.